Matt, obviously this is a good step to get more fuel supply, but is it concerning that we're now relying on China for our energy security?
Should concern every Australian, Shari, that our government has had to effectively go cap in hand begging to our near neighbours for a basic essential commodity. We have an entire continent to ourselves. In fact, we have many, many more oil resources than China. China itself is not particularly rich in liquid fuels. However, they have invested in a refining industry. They still rely on being supplied with those liquid fuels from the Middle East, from countries like Iran, often, where they don't accord to the global sanctions against them. And so this should be a massive wake-up call to this Australian government. The Labor Party has run a war on fossil fuels in its first 4 years. It's had our energy system run by a fool in Chris Bowen, who's been off on some hydrogen fuel fantasy. Really, Chris Bowen should go, and someone competent should be put in that role, who can develop our nation's resources and not have this embarrassing situation again as a country. Obviously, we're in the position we're in, and we're going to have to get the fuel we can in the short term from whoever takes sympathy on us. But I worry being put in this position. I mean, what is the quid pro quo here with the Chinese Communist Party? Why, when we're put in such vulnerable positions, other countries could easily take advantage of countries put in that in such a position. And this is a choice we have chosen. Oh, this government, this Labor Party government, has chosen not to develop our natural resources. They're not releasing acreage to develop oil in our offshore areas. They've been talking for years about the need to move away from coal, oil and gas, and we're now in this embarrassing situation as a country. That's got to change. And if the Labor Party aren't going to change this, if they're not going to change Energy Minister, well, the Australian people can change the Energy Minister at the next election.
There's no way China's just doing us a favour here, and the issue is we never have transparency with what deals have been done, what was said in the conversations. We've seen this in the past on other issues. Matt, the price of crude oil, meanwhile, has soared to $120 a barrel. So this is threatening to wipe out any help the fuel excise tax cut relief may have offered. And then on top of the inflation figures yesterday, which showed that CPI jumped from 3.7% to 4.6%, the highest jump in 3 years. I mean, we're right back in a cost of living crisis.
Well, we were in a cost of living crisis before the conflict. Let's be very clear about that. Australia had the highest inflation rate in the developed world before any hostilities emerged between the United States and Iran. Now, obviously, the situation has made a bad situation worse, but we're in that bad situation because the Labor Party lost control of government spending. In the last budget update before the conflict, just months before the conflict started, the Labor Party issued a mid-year financial or fiscal outlook report that showed that government spending was up by more than $50 billion, cost blowouts of more than $50 billion in just a 6-month period. Never seen anything like it before under any government. The scale of financial mismanagement of this government has been beyond even the Whitlam governments, and that's why Australia had the highest inflation rate in the developed world. It's why we have the highest interest rates in the developed world now as well. So what this government has got to focus on now is being disciplined with spending, getting that under control. But all I really hear from the government is taxes. They want to put more taxes on us. Taxes on property, taxes on investment, taxes on people who have trusts and are trying to run a business. That's not going to solve inflation. Solving inflation will mean cutting back and tightening the government's belt, just like every Australian family's had to do in the last few years, and improving the productivity of our nation, expanding the frontier of our economic output to take pressure and heat out of the Australian economy. The government's failing on both those things, so no wonder we face the highest inflation in the developed world.
In this video, you are about to discover how Australia turned a resource-rich continent into an energy hostage of its own making. I have a favour to ask. If you are not subscribed to the channel yet, please take a second to do that now. You done? Thank you so much. Now, let us continue.
I think people forget, Matt, or maybe they don't know, that you actually have an economics degree from memory. Do you think there are concerns that we're heading into a period of stagflation or, a recession? Two different issues, but that basically we're heading for an economic downturn. Where do you think the economy is going?
Look, just to make sure we explain to everyone, stagflation is a period where you have both a recession, both economic downturn and high inflation Typically they go in reverse. The last time we had stagflation here and in many other countries was in the 1970s when there was a massive energy crisis. Now, the energy crisis we are facing today is the worst energy crisis since the 1970s. So clearly the risk of stagflation is clear and present because it happened last time we're in this situation. And so we need to learn the lessons of that last time. The lessons of that last time were that price controls, government dictates did not work. The only thing that broke the back of the stagflation then were governments getting their budgets under control. In the end, interest rates had to go much higher than they should have if governments had done it earlier. So I go back to my point. That's why I said my point. That this should have been done a year or two ago when we're in good or better economic times. But now we've got to tile the roof while the cyclone is among us. But the sooner we get on with that, the safer everyone will be.
Yeah, all right. Matt, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Picture this, a country sitting on some of the largest oil and gas reserves on the planet, yet lining up to buy fuel from the very nation it considers its greatest strategic rival. Sounds like fiction, does it not? It is not. It is Australia, right now, today. Let us start with the man many blame for steering this ship into the rocks, Energy Minister Chris Bowen. Critics argue his obsession with hydrogen, a fuel that barely exists commercially, has become a costly distraction while the basics of energy security get ignored. Senator Matt Canavan did not mince words on Sky News, calling for Bowen's removal and demanding someone competent take the wheel. Harsh, perhaps. Wrong, the numbers suggest otherwise. Now, here is where it gets genuinely alarming. Australia has the oil. What it lacks is refining capacity. China, a country with far fewer natural resources, spent decades building refineries while Australia let its own quietly shut down. So now, when the Bowser runs dry, where does Australia turn? China. Think about that for a moment, relying on a strategic competitor for the fuel that keeps the lights on and the trucks moving. That is not energy policy, that is a hostage situation with better branding. And this dependency did not appear overnight. It is the direct result of years spent waging what critics call a war on fossil fuels, refusing to release offshore acreage for exploration, and sidelining coal, oil and gas before viable replacements were ready. The bill for that gamble has now arrived, and it's addressed to every household in the country. Which brings us to the wallet, because this is where theory becomes painfully personal. Inflation has been running at some of the highest levels in the developed world, driven not just by global oil price shocks, but by staggering government spending blowouts, tens of billions of dollars in mere months, according to Fiscal Outlook reports. Instead of tightening the belt, the response has been new taxes on property, investment and trusts, squeezing more out of people already struggling to fill the fridge. Here's the analogy worth remembering. Running a national economy on runaway spending during an energy crunch is like trying to put out a house fire by pouring in more petrol and hoping the extinguisher shows up eventually. It simply does not work. Now the word economists whisper with dread: stagflation, recession and high inflation hitting simultaneously. Australia has flirted with this nightmare before, back in the 1970s, when energy shocks crippled growth while prices spiraled. The lesson from that era was brutally clear. Price controls fail, government mandates fail, only fiscal discipline and decisive action work. Yet here we are again, facing the worst energy crunch since that decade, apparently having learned nothing. So what's the fix? Genuine spending restraint, a serious re-evaluation of resource strategy, and a return to energy resilience built on Australian soil, not foreign goodwill. Voters ultimately hold the final say at the ballot box, and pragmatic, resource-focused alternatives are waiting in the wings. The choice ahead is not complicated: discipline now or dependency and decline later. I appreciate you for taking time to watch this. Stay safe and let us make this nation a better place. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below.